What up, friends? I'm gonna start being loud if it doesn't stop being 90 plus degrees, and today we're gonna be reviewing Nia Archives' newest album, Silence is Loud. This is the debut album, in fact, by British DJ, producer, and singer-songwriter Nia Archives. Nia has quickly become one of the most up-and-coming artists in the modern drum and bass and jungle scene, especially for coming from some pretty modest SoundCloud and self-released roots. She had her come up during the pandemic, actually, finding no label who was really willing to support her or sign her, so she kind of took matters into her own hands. While I'm only somewhat familiar with her earlier works, they did definitely show a sort of experimental edge and a hunger to kind of switch up and modernize the whole scene in general. The addition of some pop-inspired instrumentals into her sound alongside vocals that are very reminiscent of artists like Florence Welch and Portishead also really helped her stand out. They gave a very unique flair to her work, and her debut album here pretty much just refines that DIY sound that she was playing with on her earlier EPs. Like, you can definitely tell that the production value increased on this one. While this is mostly to the album's benefit, the more experimental side of her is a bit subdued here. The project is still very lush and enjoyable though, even if the track-by-track identity suffers because of this. The title track, Silence is Loud, gets us started and does a great job at showcasing what we're getting ourselves into. The instrumental is this raw surge of expression that underlines a lot of the songs on this project. From a driving beat and these jovial vocal samples and guitar, Nia creates a really lush soundscape to describe her affection towards her brother and how she hopes that their relationship can just be always positive. The next track, Cards on the Table, definitely goes for more of a singer-songwriter approach, especially thanks to that breezy acoustic guitar and synth pattern. The vocals are warm and almost innocent in a way, and this, I think, really fits the lyrics of Nia basically just talking about all of these things that she likes about this person who has captured her attention. It also has a bit of a Britpop twinge to it too, which I think also showcases how Nia is trying to keep it fresh by combining unlike sounds with her tried and true drum and bass and jungle stuff. I feel like the intimacy in the lyrics are also an element that a lot of other artists in this scene just don't really have. Crowded Rooms gets a bit darker, feeling more frantic and anxiety-driven, especially thanks to that repeating synth note and the melancholic guitar that this one has. This feeling of apprehension fits the social anxiety expressed in the lyrics, with Nia feeling like she has to put on a mask every time she goes outside. Whether it's to parties or social events, she feels like she cannot be who she truly is, and she constantly has to shapeshift her way into these events. This pining feeling in the instrumental also helps back this up, as again, Nia feels like she has to basically try to be somebody else instead of who she really is, even though she really wants to express her genuine self. The dire piano near the last third of this track also represents how she needs to people please and how she dreads doing this all over again every time she goes out, especially when that melancholic guitar comes flooding back in near the end. Blind Devotion is another highlight on this project, although I wish it wasn't so short, to be honest. It really hones in on the dark undertones of the project, feeling like you're just descending into a dark spiral. The guitar and the off-kilter MGMT-styled synths showcase that uneasy feeling of not being satisfied with who you are. It's a bit haunting in a way, however, again, I do wish the song was a bit longer to fully take advantage of this. Tell Me What It's Like is one of the harsher moments of the record, definitely going more in almost like a post-punk direction in a way. The heavier synth and bass tones really reinforce this, and it also has a bit of an indie twinge to it too. This helps portray Nia's frustrations that she talks about in the lyrics about a lover who does not seem to be as invested in this relationship as she does, and I think the sort of fuzzier moments in this song have a rawer edge that also backs up these emotions. Nightmares is actually a bit similar to the previous song, however, it's a bit more smooth and almost in a sarcastic way. The guitars and synth are a bit more tongue-in-cheek and playful here, and I think this is really fitting because Nia is definitely more confrontational on this track, with her basically talking about how nightmares don't only happen when they're sleeping, and also how you say keep it real, but you're so damn fake. The tone of this one overall is actually pretty cathartic compared to the last track too, which is a pretty nice progression of themes, I guess. F.A.M.I.L.Y is one of the best songs on the project, maybe even the best song, but there's one coming up later that I also really like. The gritty synths and drums, the dramatic horn and organ samples, like, this shit's great. It has this fed up sound to it that I think is just so fitting for the lyrics of this track, with her kind of reaching out to her family to try to mend their connection, however her parents just keep throwing it away. It definitely seems to be about how just because you are tied by blood doesn't mean that there's a genuine connection there. The line, "Yeah, sometimes family ties don't always survive. I don't identify with my F.A.M.I.L.Y. over this instrumental," is just perfect. So tell me, the final track on the project is the last highlight for me personally. Okay, so this is the best song on here. It combines everything that made the previous songs on the record good. It just culminates in this like somber release. The guitar tone, when paired with her vocals, is just ethereal, and that sort of like subtle reverse synth that we got going on in the background here has this like minuscule darkness that permeates the entire track that just ascends this song to the next level. Those strings are also just hauntingly beautiful, and I think the sort of culmination of all of these elements along with the lyrics really reinforce the themes of this track, with Nia basically saying, why should I have to deal with all of these, all of this judgment and criticism from people that I should care about when I can just walk away. It perfectly captures how making these hard decisions of cutting people out of your life, it's tough, but sometimes the cathartic relief afterwards is worth it. Now, we didn't talk about every song on this project, however, that's because some of the songs were kind of just doing what the other songs did as well, or more like extended intermissions. To be honest, if I really had one criticism of the project, is that it's occasionally a bit one note. Even the songs I didn't talk about were still pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. However, more variety in the beats and drum patterns I feel like would make each of these songs have a bit more of an identity to them. Without this variety, some of the songs here just sounded a bit safe, or maybe just like a bit of a lesser retread of other stuff that we've heard on the record. That being said though, I still love this album. It's enjoyable and engaging all the way through, and I think the pop and singer-songwriter elements that she was kind of weaving into these tracks really helped Nia carve her own niche in the scene too. I do miss some of the more experimental moments that I've heard on some of her earlier EPs, however, for kind of going into a new sort of sound, this couldn't have gone much better. The addition of some actually fairly introspective vocals and lyrics also, I think, really helped this project stand out. If Nia were to get a bit more wild with her beats, have a bit more variety in the instrumentals, I think she has a fucking banger of an album up her sleeve. After all this though, I'm feeling a strong 8 on Nia Archive's newest album. Of course, you still have to talk about album covers on this show, and this one's okay. It does have a sort of provocative image of her face. I think it does have a bit of an attitude to it, which I think is really fitting for the record. I really like that sort of cadence that we got going on here. I guess it just doesn't really have much of a design element to it, which if you know me, I'm more of a fan of like the more minimalistic and kind of design-oriented covers. However, I do think the color scheme is really well, it's very warm. However, it does have those flashes of like jewelry and stuff that kind of give it a tinge of a cold edge, especially when we get those shines from like her necklace, the grills and stuff like that. I think that's pretty slick. I like that a lot. But I feel like just more from a composition standpoint, it's a bit plain, I suppose. But I do think it does represent the sort of emotions of the record decently well. But of course, those are just my thoughts on this newest album and debut album by Nia Archives. What did you guys think? Do you think this is just a great next step in her journey, kind of her exploring new sounds? Or are you kind of missing some of the earlier sort of experimental beats that she was working with in her earlier EPs? Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and maybe I won't be silent anymore. Is that a threat? I don't know. But until next time, farewell.